A crisis everywhere.
We have seen some young folks die as a result of fentanyl.
Her son died a year ago today of a fentanyl overdose.
One pill kills.
I have never seen anything like this.
Researchers say synthetic opioids like fentanyl are the leading cause of death among 18 to 45-year-olds. A survivor shares her story.
I feel so grateful to be alive because I shouldn't be.
But many aren't so lucky. In South Texas, the families of those people are in unimaginable pain.
They're not supposed to die before you. You're supposed to die first.
Meanwhile, law enforcement everywhere fight to keep fentanyl from entering the country and reaching our neighborhoods.
Trying to find that needle in the haystack.
But they need help. They want you to listen to their message and save lives. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Stefania Jimenez. We hear about fentanyl all the time, how it comes into our country, what laws leaders are passing to fight the drug, but we can't forget the human cost of fentanyl. In 2021, the Centers for Disease Control found that the synthetic opioid was involved in about 22 deaths for every 100,000 people in the U.S. It's linked to the most deadly overdoses. The Drug Enforcement Administration says that it's in most illegal drugs. And often, it's the people who don't know they're taking fentanyl who die from it. Sometimes they're kids who think they're getting a prescription pill from their friends, or they're experimenting, which, by the way, kids do. The National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics says that 50% of teens have misused a drug at least once. But with fentanyl, that could be one time too many. And that one mistake leaves victims' families with the painful reality that they'll never see their loved ones again.
Happy birthday to you. Okay, blow your candles.
Thank you.
Blow them out.
Blow 'em out.
Kyle was a very, very kind young man. He was always looking out for me. He was like my best friend. He loved animals, and he was always helping with my pets and taking care of them for me, and loved dogs. We were living in California. He became an EMT there, and then we moved here. The day that it happened, he was going with me to the vet. I saw him about 3:40 in the afternoon, and he was in his bedroom hanging out. So the next morning when I got up, he was still in bed, and I was getting ready to go somewhere, and I realized it was almost 11 o'clock and he still wasn't up, which was not normal for him. And then I went in there and I called his name and he didn't move, so I went over and I touched him and he was cold. And I screamed to my husband that he was dead. He wasn't this horrible person that people want to make somebody out to be, because for whatever reason, he was self-medicating with drugs. It is the worst pain that any person can go through, and I don't want anybody to go through it.
There's no way we can talk about fentanyl in the U.S. without bringing you here. This is the Juarez-Lincoln Bridge, which connects Laredo, Texas to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. It's one of the many U.S. ports of entry, which basically makes it ground zero for fentanyl trafficking.
Fentanyl is what we're seeing across the entire southern border.
Established.
If you look at it like a football game, of course, the first line of defense would be, the ports of entry. That's your defensive line, if you will. Then you have the Border Patrol, which are going to be your linebackers. They have that opportunity at the checkpoints to catch, anything that either initiates in the U.S. or unfortunately gets past the ports of entry. I think the Border Patrol, it serves like the last chance of defense. Technology helps us, with some inspections, but again, the cartels or the transnational criminal organizations are keeping up to date with the stuff that we try to use to interdict those.
A lot of times, we identify what we try to identify beforehand. If we know it's fentanyl, then we'll move in there. So this will give us a real-time reading of any substance that we have in the field. Given officer safety, we can use a laser, right, to shoot through the substance as opposed to actually getting hands-on, opening the package.
These transnational criminal organizations, they're out to make money, and they're going to try everything possible to get these drugs, in particular fentanyl, into the hands of our young, kids, adults in the U.S. Just the fact that Laredo lies geographically right in the middle of the Pan American Highway, it has access to all the major highways in Mexico. You got the I-35 corridor. That once you get to San Antonio, you can go east or west via I-10. So obviously they have access to all the major cities in the U.S.
The Centers for Disease Control says from January 2021 to January of 2022, more than 107,000 people in the U.S. died of drug overdoses and drug poisonings. 67% of those deaths involve synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Up next, you're going to meet a woman who survived 3 fentanyl overdoses, and she hopes that you learned something from her story.
I immediately passed out. There was no thoughts. Like as soon as it entered my bloodstream, it knocked me out immediately.
It's no surprise that the fentanyl crisis is also affecting Americans who suffer from substance abuse disorder. Back in 2020, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration did a survey and found that 40 million Americans are living with a drug addiction. And here's where fentanyl comes in. It's so potent and cheap to produce that drug dealers are adding it to most illegal drugs like heroin, cocaine, meth, and prescription pills. So people addicted to those drugs are also dying from fentanyl overdoses. But sometimes they're lucky. They survive.
In April, I overdosed on fentanyl 3 times, and it was because I did not know it was in the drugs that I was using.
And what drugs were you?
I was using meth and heroin. It feels really good to say that I am alive, and it feels like freedom. I think it's just important that we keep these addicts alive until they get to a place where they are ready for help. So just like it's so important that we keep them alive, because every person is special. They're loved by someone. So a life lost, even if they're an addict, is a tragedy. If I could have stopped, I would have years ago. I mean, it's absolutely destroyed everything that I've ever loved, and I've come back from that, and I've been able to regain the things that I love. Anywhere you go, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who's being affected by this addiction. So yes, it's everyone's problem.
We're very happy to tell you that Anna's doing well. She's working towards getting her bachelor's degree in social work. She wants to use her education and her own experience to help people with substance abuse disorder. Up next, you're going to see how the DEA and the state of Texas are fighting fentanyl. Big relief for the Texas families who've lost loved ones to fentanyl. Many of those families surrounding Governor Greg Abbott today in Austin as he signed 4 bills into law. In June, Texas families who lost loved ones to fentanyl celebrated after Governor Greg Abbott passed laws cracking down on the drug. A a problem that's very personal to members of the Drug Enforcement Administration, an agency that stepped up enforcement and started campaigns to stop fentanyl.
This problem is unprecedented. I've been with DEA for 18 years, and I have never seen anything like this. I've had 3 friends that have lost children due to fentanyl, and then another friend who lost his nephew, what they believe was fentanyl. So it hits home, right? And I have young children, so I'm trying to do everything I can, not only for my family, but for our community, to prevent that heartache from reaching another family. In 2022, the Houston Field Division, which the San Antonio District Office is a part of, seized approximately, or more than 674,000 fentanyl pills and 230 pounds of fentanyl. So our DEA lab has told us that is enough fentanyl to kill roughly 7 million people. So to put it into perspective for your viewers, that is enough to kill every single man, woman, and child in San Antonio.
It seems that even junior high school kids are experimenting, and high school kids are also experimenting, college kids. What do you want parents to know?
They need to monitor their children's social media. Anyone who is on social media, has access to the internet, is a potential victim of a poisoning from fentanyl. And you should never, ever take a pill that has not been prescribed for you and dispensed by a licensed practitioner. There is no legitimate prescription pill that can be purchased through social media.
Hey, see your hands, see your hands. Keep your hands where I can see them. Keep them up.
The people that are selling fentanyl, we're coming for you. We are coming for you. We're going to do everything we can. If you're selling poison on our street, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you are put behind bars where you cannot hurt other people.
My son died right after the children in Uvalde, and I was just so brokenhearted for those parents. I saw the moms and dads on the news. I saw them, and then just 2 days later, it was me, you know? And no, he wasn't a little boy, but I think what people don't understand about that when you lose your adult child is you didn't just lose your child, you lost your best friend.
Kyle Hinkle was among the more than 2,000 people in Texas who were killed last year from fentanyl poisoning. Fentanyl is the most common drug involved in fatal overdoses across all ages, races, and genders. That's one reason that everyone you heard from tonight says fighting fentanyl is everyone's problem.